It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Now for my favorite part of the show, wherein I guess what's in Tim's background. Tim, I'm going to guess you've got, he's taking kind of a cue from me, but it is Donald Trump keying Elon Musk's Tesla. That's what you got, right? Am I right about that?
It's very, very, very close there,
Oh,
Bruce.
okay.
It is the lofty goals of Doge returning to Earth.
Oh my, yes.
In a spectacular fashion, like a SpaceX rocket explosion.
Boy, I'll tell you, this really blew up, pretty quickly. I understand this afternoon alone that Elon impregnated 4 women. That's just how crazy it went for him. Now, also, and Chris sent this, and I had seen this before, and I didn't know if it was real. I wanted to get it past legal at our podcast before we went with it, because you know how we've been bamboozled before. Like we thought that I want to say Kyle Farnsworth, but it's Kyle the shooter in Kenosha. We thought he was the big boy. It gained weight and had the flip on his, so I'll believe anything I see on Kyle Rittenhouse should be. I'll believe anything I see on Twitter. But Chris saw this as well. And I don't know if you saw it, but Elon apparently tweeted, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT." And it already had 70.8 million views since just a couple of hours ago. And I got to say, I've been on Twitter since 2009, and I dare say that I've had maybe 50, 60 million views in all that time. But, but good, kudos, as Michael Jordan would say to Elon, for that. So yeah, this, and who would have thunk that this was going to happen between these two egos?
The spat, you mean?
Yeah.
Because
right.
because it's been speculated for quite some time that that's the reason why the Epstein files are not being released. Is that there's one name on it that cannot be redacted.
Yeah. And of course, that's the important thing, not the dispute between Elon, the underlying dispute between Elon and Trump. And I guess it manifests itself in how I just take a cursory look at the week's events and rely on you and Chris to straighten me out and get the right details. But correct me if I'm wrong. Elon is basically very upset that the big beautiful bill, it doesn't really call for any kind of meaningful cuts, unlike the Doge experience, which didn't call for any meaningful cuts either. But and then Trump is retaliating.
Well, I don't know that I believe that. I
believe
mean,
what?
That the Doge had no meaningful cuts.
Oh, okay, all right.
I thought he went through everything for over 3 months. Took 3 months out of his career. Let his company tank because he wanted to recommend cuts. He sent over the cuts, and Trump just kind of went, "Well, that's very nice, thank you," and went ahead and did what he did. I mean,
well, the thing is, no matter how good the cuts would be, everybody knows, the elephant in the room, or the 800-pound gorilla. And what would happen if the 800-pound gorilla and the elephant in the room squared off in a cage match, the likes of which, are rivaled only by Elon versus Trump? That, it's entitlements that nobody wants to touch. And so there's that battle, and that's really
well, I don't know that it's entitlements, but it's pork.
No, pork. Yeah, that's Doge. Doge is pork, but entitlements are the things.
But they didn't cut the pork.
Well, they're not cutting entitlements either. They're not cutting entitlements. That's the big ticket thing. We don't have to go over this. We know that everybody knows this. It's and it's not happening, and that's why Trump got elected. One of the reasons he got elected twice is that he promised money for nothing and the chicks for free. I get it. I mean, that's whereas Mitt Romney, the Bain Capital Schumpeter's creative destruction guy, how he doesn't care about me. Does he care about me? Because everybody's looking for a freaking handout.
Yeah,
So
instead, it's they wanted money for nothing and the chicks for free, and instead they got money for tariffs and the chicks had bird flu.
oh man, yes, that is a bumper sticker. Stop, Chris. Mark that one. Mark that one for a highlight. You pull that out and throw it on YouTube. So so that's the situation with them. They're fighting over, and there's a substantive battle as well in that. And then Trump is retaliating and saying he doesn't know why Biden didn't cut all the subsidies for Tesla. So, pretty soon, I guess Musk is going to be a sympathetic character on the left again, and all those people who wrote I don't like Musk with an X through him on their Teslas will peel those off and then feel don't have a guilty conscience about driving those machines.
But as you know, Bruce, you cannot unkey a car.
Oh man, you know how to hurt. Oh, and now you know the rest of the story, which we're never going to tell. We won't have time. So did you see that KJP, which let me see, I'm playing PDQ right now. That stands for Karen Jean Pierre, right? So she came out with a book now.
Corinne Jean Pierre.
Jean Pierre. Yes. And when you first see the title, and if you don't read past the title, you think, oh, she's turning on Biden too. But apparently, no. She thinks Biden got screwed over by the Democrats, I guess. And it shows a little bit of loyalty. I mean, she's stupid. She was a DEI.
What is the title?
I think it's called Independent, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
She has left the Democratic Party. She's upset with, and my understanding is that you don't know what it's about either, do you?
What, her book?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, it's good.
No.
It's good.
No one really care.
Right.
I think the book should have been, where's my $10 million media contract?
Well, that's why she probably wrote the book, because she didn't get a gig.
Yeah,
she didn't even get on The View.
For God's sake!
Yeah.
She spent 2 years defending the oligarchy behind the zombie puppet. What does she have to show for that loyalty?
And she's like Pesci in Goodfellas. Yeah. She thinks she's going to become a made woman, and there's nothing there. Oh man, it was really Hugh Layla right now. So
I think she should sue The View for lack of diversity. Because there are no little people on The View.
Yeah, I mean they do have the stupidity quotient.
Much less a black lesbian little person.
Yeah, and a stupid DEI hire. Jesse Waters had called her a DEI hire, and Michael McKean, the actor from Better Call Saul, all the great Christopher Guest
Squiggy
movies.
And Lenny.
Michael McKean. Yeah, I mean, he's a really good actor.
Lenny and Squiggy is what I remember him from.
Anyway, he said Jesse Waters is an idiot. And you know what? I agree Jesse Waters is an idiot, but I think he's right about KJP being a DEI hire. I mean, she is considered, I think, there's a bipartisan view on this, I believe. She was maybe the most stupid press secretary ever. And she wasn't even a good liar.
Yeah, but she ticks off so many boxes.
Oh, tell me about it. I get it.
Which I did not mean as code, but I guess it could be taken that way.
Totally. Yeah. So, all right. I don't know if Chris got this. I don't know if I sent this to you, Chris. There's a tweet by this Jason Cohn. Rahm Emanuel is definitely running for president of the United States.
Oh, we established that.
We have established it, and here's further evidence of it. This guy says Rahm Emanuel torches Joe Biden, backtracking on using the term illegal for Laken Riley's murder. In his last State of the Union, said Rahm, he said illegal immigrants. The next day, because of a bunch of Washington 202 area code jerks yelling at him, he said, I meant undocumented. He said that was the slowest pitch over the plate. Nobody thinks you deserve to go into the Oval Office if a group in Washington can stare you down because they don't think you can stare down Xi or Putin. And I got to tell you, who does Rahm sound like? He sounds like Trump. Yeah. I mean, I'm the guy who can stare down Putin. Now, what would he be staring at? He's probably be staring at his testicular fortitude right in the eye. But
I think basically Rahm is the taking up the political strategy of his former boss. He's triangulating.
Totally. It's total. Well, wait. His former boss was Biden. Was Obama. Clinton is the triangulator, right? Am I right?
He wasn't part of the Clinton administration.
Well, let's go back now. I think Rahm was the chief of staff for Obama.
I'm confusing. I'm sorry. You are right. I am confusing him with George Stephanopoulos.
Right.
Those little tiny Democrats all look the same to me.
Remember, first of all, you have the mayor of Munchkinland, then you have Stephanopoulos, and then you have Rahm. They represent the Lullaby League, and they're going to try to put us to sleep with some of their rhetoric, because I just love Rahm being the tough guy. I mean, and nobody can bury a tape that shows the de facto murder of a black man better than Rahm Emanuel. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of fun.
Look how Chris has the picture frozen, so you can see the fact that Rahm
I didn't even
came up a
notice
little short.
Yeah. Oh man, that's the Arby's finger.
Yeah, there is no way that he could ever give a Nazi salute with that finger.
I mean, that's kind of like,
I don't know how you can drive without a middle finger.
Well, exactly. Of course, it's not his right hand, so unless he's in Great Britain and needs to give the universal sign, I mean, he's okay. Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah, that's Rahm. All right, we got much more coming up. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Okay, I guess it's time for Bruce's Jews news. Oh no, yeah, all right. Keith Olbermann, I think this is a sign that even he is sick and tired of whether you call them undocumented migrants or illegals or aliens or whatever Rahm is correcting Biden on. Even Olbermann, because he's trying to deflect, he goes on Twitter and he blames, of course you blame Trump. That's the default mode. Blames Trump for the Boulder terror attacks because Trump is concentrating on, rooting out, all these poor innocent illegals when he should be going after the terrorists. But at least he's in favor of going after the terrorists because, if you're on a campus in the United States right now, it's de rigueur to be a terrorist. So,
or at least a sympathizer.
Yeah, at least so. Now, so then there was this flap over, do you deport the family as well as this guy, and USA Today, I guess, had a story about the daughter of this guy who, she wanted to study medicine in the United States of America. Too bad. Charlie Cook in National Review said that the whole family should be sent, their exit vehicle should be a circus cannon. And to that I say, boom shakalaka. But that's Charlie Cook is, he has this British accent, well, because he's from Britain and he is a constitutional authority. But there's a time to say, yes, it's time to use a circus cannon, because they were here on what I guess it's called a B visa, and they overstayed. So they were illegal. So everything must go, as Lynn Burton for certain would say about all the cars at Burt Weinman 3737 North Ashland Avenue. I just had an idea here, Tim. We do commercials for extinct products and businesses, just so it sounds like we got some, I've got a whole CD full of vintage ads. Yeah. Why don't you just chime in?
Schaefer, the beer to have when you're having more than one.
And by the G. Heidelman Brewing Company of La Crosse, Wisconsin, makers of Old Style. And by, all right, you see my beer and raise me another beer. So we have 100 bottles of beer on the wall. Okay. And by Hams, the beer refreshing from the land of sky blue waters. Okay.
And Bromo Seltzer.
And all right, let's now go cigarettes. Winston. Winston tastes good like a.
You're going to get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble with the federal government for that one.
I don't think on everything up to the 3 millionth ranked podcast in the United States is governed by the
Lucky Strike's mildest on your T-zone.
LSMFT.
9 out of 10 doctors recommend Lucky Strikes for their patients who smoke.
I'll see your doctors recommending you Lucky Strikes and raise you an LSMFT. You know what that stands for?
Lucky Strike, more fine tobacco.
Means fine tobacco. We'll allow it. Would you like to keep playing the game?
Yeah. Okay.
Tim Slagle. All right, we'll come back with more.
Do you know what happiness is?
A warm drug? Warm gun?
To a general, it's a regiment to a smoker.
What cigarette?
The taste of Kent.
Oh, Kent with the micronite filter. Sure. Yeah.
To a Briton, it's the Parliament.
What was the name of the cigarette where they showed the guy with the black eye and he'd say, "I'd rather fight than switch."
Territon.
Yeah. Dual filter Territons. Okay. Here's your final cigarette.
It's actually the original Kent with the micronite filter.
Yeah.
Was asbestos. So if you can't, if you don't want to smoke so much and still get lung cancer.
All right, here's your final one. Here's your final Jeopardy answer. Name this cigarette. Take a puff, and it's springtime.
I'm guessing it was a menthol.
It seems like it, right?
Yeah.
That would be Salem cigarettes. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for playing. And here's a home version of our Name That Cigarette game from the 1960s. All right. So at least Olbermann was on the side of law and order, if you wanted to. But it's just amazing. ABC News had a story about, in the wake of this, the dramatic increase in anti-Semitic and Islamophobic activity. And as somebody, one wag tweeted, that's like putting down the number of speeding tickets that Marco Rubio and his wife have, or I would say Hank Aaron and his brother Tommy had home runs. Yeah, sure. They always have to throw in on the Islamic phobic activity.
Well, what's funny is when it's anti-Semitic terror, it's usually like a shooting or a bombing or something like that. Islamophobic terror is mailing bacon to someone.
Or looking at them the wrong way. And the same thing has happened on the campuses, because you have Harvard, which, as my friend Sam Schulman says, apparently they value their anti-Semitism more than they value research, scientific research, which is going to cure like Parkinson's in the next 2 years. Because so one of these scientists was going, I'm not going to get my grant. Well, that's because they value anti-Semitism more. And what is it? So you have, Jews who are afraid to go to classes. There's physical threats. And this, don't tell me this doesn't have anything to do with what happened in Boulder and in DC and Josh Shapiro's mansion, 2 weeks or so ago. But they're holding.
I didn't hear what happened to Josh Shapiro. The governor. I'm sorry.
Mansion.
I was thinking Ben Shapiro. I don't know.
Yeah, why. Right. Yeah, you've seen one, you've seen them all. You anti-Semitic bastard. We're all the same to you, aren't you? Shapiro, Shapiro. Yeah. Let's call the whole thing off.
Shapiro, Shapiro.
Well, there are Shapiros, but well, if of course, if you throw a Molotov cocktail at him, you're
Shapiro.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, yeah, I'm getting the joke that you told. All right, that I actually said unwittingly, but
didn't realize there was a punchline.
Did not even. That's how good I am. It just comes naturally. So, so there was a headline from NBC News. They wanted to go. Rich Lowry points this out. They wanted to go out of their way not to refer to Jews in the initial headline on the Colorado attack. Instead, they called the victims Gaza hostage awareness marchers.
What?
There should be an acronym, GAM, GHA, Gaza Say it 10 times real fast. Gaza hostage awareness marchers. You can't say Jews. That would be too specific. But that's the way these universities.
Didn't they describe the bomber just as a white male?
Oh, is that how they initially did? Okay.
Yeah. They didn't want to mention where he was from or how he got here, or yeah, it was just white male, anti-Semitic male. Because they're still trying to make that trope stick.
Well, they wanted to be right wing.
Trump supporters are the Nazis. Yeah,
they wanted. Yeah, absolutely. So you got. I mean, and the campuses are a microcosm, or they're leading the way. I mean, you've got, when you have Islamophobia, it's these microaggressions. When it's anti-Semitism, it's macro. it's the real deal. But okay, fair enough. I totally understand. Do you here's what I skipped over something. Do you even know who Chris Ranji is? Okay. You don't even know, right?
I do not know.
Okay. Chris, do you even care who Chris Ranji is? I know you know who he is, right?
Do I care? No.
Oh, you don't care. Okay. Well, I mean, I'll just briefly say what I don't like. I don't like it when sportscasters, except for me, start going on Twitter and opining politically. And we've mentioned like this former intern of mine, Chris Bowden. I guess they're all Chris's, and they're invariably leftist. Okay. And so we ripped that guy. So this Chris Ranji, who
it's actually kind of nice being a leftist and name your Chris, because if you transition, you don't have to change your name.
It's a beautiful thing. It's great. So Chris, I've noticed, and I've even gotten into it with him over the years. Whenever he tweets, it's a leftist thing. And so when Pete Hegseth said we're going to take away the Harvey Milk name from that ship, he said, he just ripped the Trump administration for it. And I said, Trump's, probably deserves to be ripped. As a matter of fact, I think Elon Musk is going to do it tomorrow. but
no, wasn't there a backstory on Harvey Milk that wasn't so flattering? Oh, okay.
So the underlying story. And I said, Chris, but you never rip Biden at all, zero. And because let's face it, you're a partisan hack. And he really came back. Oh man, this is why he never got a full-time job at 670 The Scoros, Chicago's progressive sports station, because he said that I needed to take Thorazine and that I had a lot of problems. So that's Oscar Wilde level criticism. So name calling.
Sure.
The underlying thing is, I don't know how to view this Harvey Milk thing, because a lot of people are saying that he was this pedophile who preyed on young teen boys. And there's my tweet back to Chris Ranji. Yeah, Joe Biden slandered an innocent man who got into an accident with his wife, positively evil, and you're in denial. Yeah, that's me to Chris Ranji. But and we went back and forth. But so that's one thing about Harvey Milk. But John Fund of National Review, of all places, defended Harvey Milk, saying he was a patriot and he was vehemently anti-communist. He campaigned for Barry Goldwater in '64, led a tax revolt. So I don't even know how to view. I know he was assassinated. I don't even know how to view Harvey Milk.
I don't think he's that important in history that you should have a naval ship named after him. Maybe a truck.
You got it. Tim Slagle, Bruce Wolf on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. So this saddened me. Did you see that Joe Walsh, not the musician James Gang Eagles, Joe Walsh, the politician, and the old story.
The lesser known Joe Walsh.
You know that I'm the only person ever to substitute for Joe Walsh on the radio, the politician, and open for Joe Walsh, the musician.
Wow.
At the Rosemont Horizon. Oh, I've told this before. Open for Teenage Radiation one year. And I had a parody of Walk This Way that I was going to sing. Then I had the words on my wrist because I was so afraid. I was like a quarterback with the first 15 plays. And I walked out to the center microphone and I started singing this song with a few thousand people. in the horizon already, and only realized after 30 seconds that my mic was off because I went to Joe Walsh's mic. The bastard. And I'm talking about Joe Walsh, the musician. Anyway,
Bruce, for some reason that does not surprise me that you would use a mic for 20 minutes and not realize it wasn't working.
Hey, thanks everybody. Tim will be performing in Minnesota all next week for the Tim Walz benefit. So, all right. So townhall.com was reporting Republican, quote unquote, Joe Walsh announces that he's formally leaving the Republican Party to become a Democrat. In a statement, he maintains that he's still a, quote, freedom-loving conservative. And you know what I have to say to that, Tim Slagle? Seems to me he just wants to talk about it. Seems to me his career is pretty dead. Just walk away. That's my favorite Joe Walsh song. I love that song.
It's kind of been on a tailspin since he left the
he left the Eagles.
No.
Joe Walsh
that as well.
He left the Republicans.
Yeah.
Well, he and Adam Kinzinger's got the spot for the turncoat, so he's just like the backup turncoat, I guess. So, speaking of backups, Rich Roper, remember him from? And by the way, I think Ebert and Siskel were overrated. Roper was okay. That's my view. Did you see? Actually, one of my favorite headlines ever when Siskel, and I knew Gene. You
got a Gene story?
Well, I just knew Gene. He was a nice guy and everything like that. But when he died, the Onion's headline, Ebert victorious. Come on. I mean, that was when the Onion knew how to do it. Anyway, so Rich Roper tweets about these baseballs that he has. Let's see what I forgot what it said. He says, I always keep a basket of baseballs close by so I can fiddle with one while watching games or doing a Zoom call. Just look down and realize this is the ball Mark Burley signed for me when I threw a ceremonial first pitch, and Mark was the catcher for the pitch. And, I just love that Rich admits on Twitter that he likes to play with his balls. Yeah. Okay. So
no. On a Zoom call like Jeffrey Tubin.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing was a setup for your comeback. That was the whole thing. So yeah, Rich Roper, a little name, I guess, I mean, we all like to name drop, I think name dropping shows humility, that look who I know. Well, I'm not greater than that person, so I know that person. So it's yeah.
You don't see that somebody is trying to hijack on someone else's ascendancy.
Oh, that too.
With a name drop.
Yeah, it's yeah.
I worked with a comic, and that's all he did. His whole act was name dropping. So it was the weirdest thing.
That it doesn't seem to lend itself to comedy so much, since comedy.
No,
skewering.
it would be like I was at the laundromat the other day, and my good friend Phyllis Diller was there. and then goes, remember Phyllis Diller? She used to say, and then he'd do like 3 or 4 Phyllis Diller jokes.
Wait a minute, did you just hear my Phyllis Diller impersonation? It just went right by you.
Oh, I thought it was Bob Hope. But then again, I often thought that Phyllis Diller was Bob Hope in drag.
They basically are. They basically were one of. You never saw them in the same room together. Yeah.
And they'd always joke about each other. They'd always tell jokes about the other one.
There you go. All right. Speaking of name dropping, I happen to know Kevin Williamson personally. I
do. You really?
Yeah, Kevin Williamson. I knew. I don't even want to let it out on this tiny little podcast because. What are you saying that you know me personally for? I'll never talk to you again. Now, he's a real nice guy. To me, he's a real nice guy. He is one hell of a writer and a stickler. I mean, if you...
Yeah, but did he ever buy you breakfast burritos?
Yeah, he did. He did, as a matter of fact. I guess that gets around. I guess it gets around. And I think you read about it on page 6 of the New York Post one.
Were those breakfast burritos as diverse as the people of Santa Fe, New Mexico?
So, Anyway, he has a column this past week in in the Dispatch, and it just rips Dan Bongino. And of course, I love to see Dan Bongino ripped because
he is pretty ripped. He is pretty ripped. The guy still has
and
a
there's no
workout schedule.
question. The guy is so ripped, but he's such a wussy. Think about the ratio of rippedness to wussiness. It's really remarkable, because he was crying the other day about how the job is taking too much time away from his family and what he gave up. So Williamson wrote this piece in the Dispatch. Bongino's one of those guys who complains about the swamp all the time, and he was going to clean up the swamp, but he is the swamp. The swamp consists of people who go shuttle back and forth between government and the private sector. You get a job in government, then you leave government, you become a lobbyist, and then you go back into government. Or as Pogo might have said, we have met the swamp and it is us. And he probably doesn't even realize that he am the swamp. Now, I love it that Kevin went after Bongino, because, as I've mentioned before, I think Bongino is the highest ranking government official. I mean, he did this before he was a government official. He's now the deputy director of the FBI. Is that right? And before he set his Twitter posse on me a couple of times, because I said, I voted for Trump too, but I'm not a suck up like you are. Uh-oh. And he set his Twitter posse on me. That's how sensitive. So I can believe that he's upset about what is, the workload and everything, because, he was a wussy.
He's a sensitive guy
who couldn't take that I said that he was a suck up. So
if you ever listen to a show, he's a sensitive guy. He starts talking about personal stuff, he gets choked up. So it does not surprise me.
Yeah,
I would like to see you call him a wussy to his face.
I like the distance of sitting behind my typewriter. I'm a keyboard warrior, no question about it. All right. Speaking of people dropping names, I used to be partners with Dan Proft, and he had he's a tweet about what was it, about Father Flager? I think it was
about the drive-by.
Yeah, Father Flager was upset about the St. Sabina drive-by shootings, and Dan, appropriately says, "Well, you reap what you sow." I mean, now you're worried about this. You wanted to free all the criminals. My recommendation to that is just not say 10 Hail Marys, but just say Father Flager flummoxed 10 times real fast. It's not that easy. Now,
did I ever tell you my Saint Sabina story?
Oh, I didn't know you had a Saint Sabina story. Let's hear it.
I have a Saint Sabina story. My nephew, a bunch of family was in town for my niece's graduation, graduated from Columbia. And my nephew wanted to see a traditional Baptist service. And where else are you going to go but a Catholic church?
Sure, totally. Praise the Lord.
So we went to St. Sabina for Mass that Sunday. And I had forgotten to get my niece a graduation card. And I said, well, that's no big deal. I'll just pop into Walgreens and
you stole $999 worth of merchandise and were not arrested.
No, looking for a graduation card. And I walked down the card aisle on one side. No, not on this side. And I walked down the aisle on the other side. No, there's none on this side. Maybe there's another aisle. And no, that's all the cards. It's like, wow, why aren't there any graduation cards at the Inglewood Walgreens?
Yeah, but there were plenty. Congratulations on your parole. Great stuff.
I learned something that Hallmark doesn't want us to know.
Well, it's funny because I think, aren't they graduating everybody anyway? It's age promotion.
I don't know. They're actually, I found them. The reason I couldn't find them, there was a crowd around the Mother's. It was right around Mother's Day. So there was a big crowd around the Mother's Day cards. And that's where I found them. There was only 3 types of graduation cards to choose from, 2 of them in Spanish.
All right.
So
sounds good. Hey, we could close
And
the segment.
for a control on the way home, I was driving through Chinatown, and I said,
Okay.
"Well,
Oh,
I've gotta find out."
Sure.
So I pop into the Chinatown Walgreens. 53.
What an we should have written this up. This is an anthropological. This is a doctoral dissertation that you had just going from neighborhood to neighborhood. I mean, that's really fascinating. The cards that you will see, and I assume there were no bar mitzvah cards in either area.
I did not see any.
Yeah.
But there's an addendum to this story that we don't have time for.
Well,
So
maybe
we'll tease it like the keying of a car at the auto show.
Well, here once again, I forget. Do we have one more segment, or is the show over?
Got another segment.
So let's do it for the next one. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. So your addendum, your coda to your story?
Well, I called my sister because it was her suggestion that we take my nephew to St. Sabina to tell him how much fun we had at the service, and I hear her talking, and I hear her say thank you, and I go, where are you at? And she goes, well, I'm at a Walgreens, coincidentally enough. I go, no kidding, where at? She goes, well, I'm in New York. I go, are you in a bad neighborhood? And she goes, no, I'm actually in a nice Jewish neighborhood.
Oh, there you go.
And I go, oh, can you do me a favor?
Sure.
And she goes, I am not going down the greeting card avenue. I am not going. And I go, oh, come on, you're curious too. She goes, no, I'm not going to take part in your racist little anthropological experiment. I go, come on. And she went, okay. So she goes, I hear her walk down the aisle. She gets to the greeting card aisle. And I go, well, okay, I'm counting. Okay. I'm still counting.
Yeah.
I go, okay, how many? She goes, 72.
There you go.
And she goes, do you want to know how many are for money? I go, oh, who's the racist now? Huh?
Ouch. Well, there you go. I mean, yeah. See, folks, you get a nice little fun-filled podcast, and also an anthropological survey, an urban survey. All you have to do is look at the greeting card sections.
If I had more ambition, I would start. I would do like the same. I would take the same path again, in about 2 weeks. About 2 weeks later, and look for Father's Day cards.
Oh man! Well, this was our last podcast, but what a way to go out! And you could send in lieu of flowers, just send a card to us. So
into the podcast with no body work required.
So let's quickly shift. First of all, you got to be thrilled. The news came out the day we're taping. The White Sox could be better 8 years from now when they get sold, possibly, to this guy who has an agreement that establishes a framework to buy the team. It sounds like a concept for healthcare legislation, but whatever. There's this guy whose name I don't know how to pronounce yet, but I've got almost a decade to figure it out. I think his name is Ishbia, and they call me Ishbia. And
it's downright Soviet, isn't it?
I think. Well, he's probably
it's gone from gone from wait until next year to a 5-year plan.
Yeah. Well, that's better for the White Sox. They've had many 5-year plans recently. So, his name is Justin Ishbia, and
it's a rebuilding decade.
Yeah. Well, okay, fine. As Jack Brickhouse once said about the Cubs, everybody has a bad century every once in a while. So, and also the great news, that Comcast, there hadn't been an agreement between Comcast and Chicago Sports Network or something, whatever it's called, to air. They forgot when they created this new network to get a deal with Comcast, the White Sox and the Bulls and the Blackhawks. So a lot of their games haven't been on, but there now is an agreement. And so I'm just hoping they rerun all the Blackhawk games from last year so that we can see them. Uh, and,
Sure.
that'll be a thrill. And in other minor sports, the Chicago soccer team, I guess it's called the Fire, they decided they are privately going to build a new 22,000 seat stadium in this place called, I want to say it's Roswell Area 78, but it's called the 78 in the South Loop. $650 million, 22,000 seat stadium seems like a lot of money per seat for a soccer team. And of course
but they're building it themselves.
Apparently they're building it themselves.
Wow.
And this is where the White Sox originally were going to put up a new stadium. Now maybe there's room for both. Now, interesting, and Chris just showed the tweet was from at 670 the Scoros, and about how thrilled they were that this guy was building there. Interesting thing, I don't know if they have the standing to actually talk about this, because in my admittedly random listening to 670 the Scoros, I have never heard a word about soccer. Although, as the sportscaster of the station's ancestor, WXRT, I did this show called Athlete's Feats back in the day. One day I reported that the Chicago Sting had won the soccer championship at Comiskey Park last night in front of 43,000 fans, none of whom I know. And when I said that, that remark got me criticized the one and only time he did it by the late, great Seth Mason, who was the co-founder of the Score, who tried to build the station around me. And little did I know that once Seth made his millions from the sale of the Score, he became a soccer coach. So I was walking right into it. But yeah, I just
the Chicago pro soccer team before was the Sting.
Der Sting, as Al Lerner used to call it, with Karl-Heinz Granitza.
So what happened? What happened to the Sting? Did it just
what
collapse?
Happened to Karl-Heinz Granitza? Because last thing we saw, he owned this restaurant in town called Coco Rico, and then the next thing we know, he was on a slow boat to Germany, back to Germany, which apparently didn't have extradition for for guys who hadn't paid all their bills. And we never saw him again, I don't think so. And that that's almost 40 years ago. Really sad story. I've dropped some names here today that you didn't really care about or know. Why don't we go make it a perfect day? Do you care at all, either you or Chris, about Gary Deeb? Do you care? Do you even know what I'm talking about? Have no idea.
I know. I remember Gary Deeb, and he used to.
Do you remember him at all? I don't even think you're old enough.
He used to be on ABC.
Well, that's the thing. In the end of his career, the coda of his career, basically when he had given up. Okay, he spent the last 13 years just being probably everything that he had criticized before. Just a TV guy, so-called critic. But he was the meanest, most vicious TV and radio critic for about 7 or 8 years. And he was, and then apparently, I don't know, just looked like he sold out afterwards. Anyway, he died recently. And just to name drop, so basically his career, he was on the Tribune and the Sun-Times from like 1970 to 83. And then he was once a week or whatever on Channel 7 until 96. And that dovetails nicely with me, because in 1996, and Chris would probably be moderately interested in this, Steve Dahl left our broadcast on WMVP, and I was searching around trying to scramble to see if I could make it go a bit. And Gary Deeb contacted me about becoming my partner. Okay, so that's how that. And wow. I didn't really, at that point he was kind of like passé, but I feel bad that he's gone, and there were some moments there. I think he once compared some program director to used toilet paper. Not just toilet paper, wow. But used toilet paper. And he ripped into Jack Brickhouse and Irv Kupcinet, who were like, there are statues of Jack Brickhouse and Irv Kupcinet on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. That's how important they were to Chicago. And he just ripped them. And, have I ever ripped anybody as well as Gary Deeb got a chance to for the Tribune and the Sun-Times? I don't know about that when the history is written here. So, he deserves to be remembered somehow. But, you don't care. Chris doesn't care. Nobody cares.
The morning zoo that'll never happen now.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Think of what might have been. And then, so there's this tweet from, we've mentioned this woman before, Lee Giangreco, who we think might be related to Mark, former sportscaster. Now, not a friend of mine. I mean, who is?
I thought you said it's his sister.
Huh?
I thought you said it was his sister.
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. So, but she's, like a woman about town now. And she goes, we've got to talk about the militant bouncer dudes, who harass you for the suggested $10 donation at every street fest. Also, the fact that the vendors at nearly every fest are identical and have nothing to do with the neighborhoods. And what my reaction to this is, and this is kind of the Tucker Carlson in me, which there isn't much, but there is this much. Maybe you're going to too many street fests. Why not move to the suburbs, raise a family, and comment on the neighbor's lawn, kid? I mean, yeah, you're going to too many street fests when, they all look alike. They're supposed to, because you're not supposed to be going to them. Stay on your own street.
They hire the same company to produce them. That's why they all look alike.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. But she's worried. She wants some variety.
There was a vendor at one of those. I still remember that would make lamps out of Jim Beam bottles. So it'd be like a Jim Beam handle with a lamp on it. And I was like, yeah, that's just what you want to put on your nightstand. Something that will remind you of your worst morning ever.
Right. Well, it's like kind of like a Christmas Story where they had the leg lamp, which was good. But the Jim Beam is good. All right, we should close with this. So Commentary Magazine tweet. Joe Biden apparently is talking about Normandy because, we're right on the anniversary. And he says he was remembering everybody and saying, there were mostly men at Normandy, mostly men that stormed the beaches at Normandy.
Sure.
Let's see the exact quote here. It's coming up in 3, 2, 1. As soon as we could get it from. Okay. Marking 8 decades since the end of World War II in Europe, Biden extolled the tens of thousands of men and women, mostly men, who stormed the beaches of Normandy. And Commentary says he needs to rewatch Saving Private Ryan. D-Day was not exercising gender equality. But, I'm thinking, how many of those men in June of 1944 would have transitioned had they been allowed to, but they were stifled? So, okay, mostly men is a fine formulation. Would you not agree, Tim Slater?
Well, yeah, but of course they would, because they'd be sitting there, if I could identify as a woman, I'd be back home stateside, putting together care packages.
Yeah, I'd become Rosie the Riveter so damn fast. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on a Weekly Wrap.
And that's the Weekly Wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The Weekly Wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production.